The night air was thick with tension as Mark walked back to his car after the championship game. The stadium lights had dimmed and the raucous cheers of the crowd had given way to a haunting silence. His heart felt like it was lodged in his throat and the weight of the world rested upon his shoulders. It had all come down to one fateful moment. The ball had ricocheted off his foot and into the net. The wrong net. An own goal, and in the process, Mark had snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. His teammates had tried to console him, but their words were hollow, their disappointment unmistakable. Walking to his car, he noticed Vanessa, his girlfriend, waiting for him. Mark couldn't make eye contact with Vanessa and got in his car and coldly drove away. As he drove home, the streetlights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows that seemed to reach out for him. The world outside was pitch black, a mirror of the darkness that had engulfed his soul. He replayed that disastrous moment in his mind over and over, the relentless loop of guilt playing in his head. The first inkling of something amiss came on that very night. Mark had barely closed his eyes when he heard it. A soft, barely audible whisper that seemed to originate from the shadows. His eyes darted around the room, but there was no one there. He dismissed it as his overreactive imagination, but as the nights passed, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. He awoke one night to eerie laughter echoing through the empty house and distant cries that sent shivers down his spine. One evening, his phone rang, jolting him from an uneasy slumber. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number, and with trembling hands, Mark answered. A chill ran down his spine as he heard strange and disturbing noises. Whispers, laughter, and the sound of something scratching against a surface. Mark called the police, his voice shaking as he recounted the bizarre events that had been plaguing him. The dispatcher offered little comfort, stating that without concrete information about the harasser, they couldn't take any action on his behalf. The feeling of helplessness gnawed at Mark's sanity. Desperation drove Mark to install a state-of-the-art home security system, complete with surveillance cameras and motion detectors. He adopted a guard dog, a loyal companion who should have provided comfort, but the dog behaved strangely, never barking or showing any signs of aggression, as if it too was in on the unsettling conspiracy against him. Mark's world continued to shrink. He began working from home, rarely stepping foot outside. Groceries were delivered, and he spent hours watching his security cameras, scrutinizing every shadow and movement outside of his home. Paranoia consumed him, leaving no room for anything else. His relationship with Vanessa, his girlfriend, who had been his rock since the disastrous game, deteriorated. She tried to console him, to be there for him, but Mark's obsession with the eerie occurrences pushed her away. She became a ghost in his life, a fading memory of happier times. Then came the night when Mark's paranoia reached its zenith. His heart pounded like a drum as he watched a figure attempting to break into his house through the surveillance cameras. Panic surged through him and he called 911, his voice quivering with terror. The operator assured him that help was on the way, but as Mark waited, he heard a loud crash coming from his basement. Fear clenched at his heart and he rushed to the basement door. Fueled by adrenaline, he moved heavy furniture to barricade the entrance. The cacophony of destruction echoing throughout the house. Mark turned to his loyal dog for reassurance, but the animal merely sat there wagging its tail and panting, seemingly oblivious to the intruder's presence. The minutes dragged on like hours as he waited for the police to arrive, his mind a whirlwind of fear and dread. When the police finally arrived, they conducted a thorough search of the house, including the basement. Their expressions grew increasingly concerned as they found no signs of an intruder. They mentioned that they had also received a call from Vanessa, who had grown worried about Mark's well-being and had requested a wellness check. With growing unease, they recommended a psychiatric evaluation. Mark, his mind still gripped by fear, refused vehemently. The tension in the room escalated as the officers tried to persuade him, but ultimately they had no choice but to take him unwillingly. Mark's loyal dog tried to protect him, growling and barking at the officers. But Vanessa arrived just in time to call off the dog. Tears welled in her eyes as Mark was escorted away, leaving behind a shattered home and a life consumed by paranoia. In the hospital, Mark embarked on a journey of therapy and medication, his mind slowly healing from the trauma of his own goal and the subsequent descent into paranoia. His therapist suggested that the bizarre occurrences were products of his fractured psyche, a manifestation of his guilt. Over time, Mark made a remarkable recovery, his family and ex-teammates supporting him throughout. They assured him that the past was forgiven, that soccer was just a game, and that his worth as a person extended far beyond a single mistake. Mark reunited with Vanessa, their love rekindling as they embraced a fresh start. Life seemed to be returning to normal, and the nightmare that had consumed him began to fade into a distant memory. But on the 1-year anniversary of his own goal, the past clawed its way back into Mark's life. Local news and sports coverage flooded the airwaves, replaying his costly mistake in excruciating detail. The guilt and shame resurfaced, threatening to engulf him once more. With a heavy heart, Mark called Vanessa, his voice trembling as he asked her to come over and provide comfort. She agreed, arriving at his doorstep with a soft smile and a warm embrace. Together, they shared a quiet dinner, trying to escape the relentless replay of his own goal on television. Mark's loyal dog, sensing his distress, began to pace, and as the dinner went on, he started to bark incessantly. Frustrated and exhausted, Mark got up to let the dog outside, his patience wearing thin. He grabbed the dog's collar and dragged it out. His temper flared for a moment. When he returned, Vanessa poured them both a glass of wine and they settled on the couch. Mark's unease grew as he struggled to shake off a sense of impending doom. He didn't want to watch TV, but Vanessa insisted on watching Netflix, trying to distract him from the painful memories. As they sat in the dimly lit room, Mark began to feel off. A queasiness settled in his stomach, and he mumbled to Vanessa that he might have food poisoning. She didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the TV, which continued to play a relentless loop of his own goal. Panic surged through Mark as he tried to stand up, but his body refused to obey. He felt as though he were trapped in cement, his limbs heavy and unresponsive, his vision blurred, and he began to drool, his words slurring as he begged Vanessa to let the dog back inside. Outside, the dog continued to bark, its voice a desperate plea for help. Mark's breathing grew shallow and labored as he watched Vanessa. She slowly came into focus, standing in front of him, her clothes changed. She now wore his team's jersey. In a cold, mischievous voice, she whispered, "I brought you a gift." Mark's heart raced as panic and anxiety coursed through him. He struggled to speak, but his face remained paralyzed, his head drooping. His blurry vision focused on a white sphere that had rolled into view. A soccer ball. On it, someone had scrawled, "Own goal." As everything went black, he heard Vanessa's chilling words in his ear. "Happy anniversary."